Hi, everyone. This is AJ Schneider from Loyalty 360, welcoming you to another edition of Leaders in Customer Loyalty Industry Voices. In these episodes, we talk to the leading agencies, technology partners, and consultants in customer, channel, and brand loyalty about the technology, trends, and best practices that drive customer loyalty. Today, we're speaking with Jeremy Dalkoff, Vice President of Partnerships and Travel Experiences at Collinson International, which is the operator of Priority Pass, which I think probably a lot of our viewers are familiar with. Welcome, Jeremy, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So, for those who aren't familiar with Collinson, tell us a little about the company and its brands, including Priority Pass.
Sure. So, Collinson is a global leader of travel experiences and loyalty solutions. We work with over 1,400 banks, 90 airlines, and 600 clients around the world. Our flagship brand is Priority Pass, as many people are aware of. We also have other brands associated with lounge access. But what is it? It's a global lounge access program. Today, it offers more than 1,800 lounges and other travel experiences, restaurants, spas, gaming, a bunch of other things in the airport space that we offer for our customers. And we offer lots of different experiences as such. We also work on the Airport Dimensions brand, which is our own company that owns and operates lounges, a subset of that 1,800 around the world.
Gotcha. And how about you, just to kind of get everyone familiar with you too? How long have you been with the company, and have you always been in the loyalty and customer experience arena?
Sure. I've been with Collinson for over 3 years now, going on 4 years. I've over close to 20 years in the travel and loyalty space. I started many years ago. I was at American Express, responsible for the Centurion lounges and just get that program up and going. Then I worked for other lounge companies. So I've been on the credit card side, operation side, and sort of the partnership and loyalty side. Throughout, it's really about creating meaningful experiences for customers that drive loyalty, and that's sort of the feather around my experience.
Gotcha. And actually, that's a great intro into the next question I was going to ask. From your perspective, having been at the forefront of a lot of the programs that people are familiar with out there, what do you see as the key to building a successful loyalty program?
Sure. I mean, it's really understanding what your customers want to an experience and figuring out how you can deliver that and creating some stickiness in that experience. So for Priority Pass, we're this middleman between banks and credit cards and lots of things and airports in many ways. And we sort of the glue that brings this together around that experience. And so it's finding things that are meaningful to customers, figuring out how you can bring it to market, how you can commercialize it, and how you can add value for everyone in the overall ecosystem.
Yeah. And with that, you guys are kind of like you mentioned, you're kind of the middleman in a lot of these cases. How do you guys at Collinson actually define customer loyalty, and how do you measure it? And is that a separate measurement from your clients doing their programs versus Collinson itself?
Yeah. What we don't see on the constant and Priority Pass side is the value of the customers that use our benefit. On the bank side, they do a lot of measuring around the value of customers, and I remember that from my American Express days around how you acquire, how you retain, and how you engage with customers, and measuring how people perform that do that versus that don't do that. What we know in our business at Priority Pass is we're there to deliver that experience and make it meaningful for them. So, what can we track? We look at usage, we look at trends, we look at, where people are going and where people are using the benefit. And we look at of the variety of things that we offer is what are people engaging with and how long are they engaging with it? Are they going every time they travel, which is great? Are they going half the time they travel? Are they seeking multiple things in their departure and destination and all those things? And for us, it's really getting people to use the benefit and value the benefit and working with that entire ecosystem to make it as valuable as possible for the customers.
Gotcha. So let's drill down on Priority Pass a little bit. As you've mentioned, it's the flagship of Collinson's airport and travel enhancement portfolio. talk a little bit about the demand for airport lounges,
Mm.
and the other experiences that make traveling more palatable, which it's an interesting time to be asking that question, I think, because of everything going on right now, with the airports being so stressed and so on. So, if you can, maybe weave some of that into your answer as well. When things, I'll call them sort of crisis type situations happen, how does that play a factor in that demand as well?
Sure. So we can all sort of remember back in 2021 or late 2020 when you took your first flight back after like the COVID shutdown. For me, it was as a heavy business traveler, it was almost, I think it was 51 weeks where I was grounded, if you will. And then being back on the airplane sometime, I think it was late February, early March 2021. And it's like, wow, there's nobody there. There's so much room wherever you go. You had an empty seat next to you in the airplane, and walking in the terminal, and half the things are closed. And then fast forward to where we are now, and lines and congestion, and airplanes are being full, and just in lounges there's more and more customers seeking that, and there's queues, right? And that's the experience we are today. And there's just a huge boom of travel in the US and many places around the world, where and the connectivity of people traveling everywhere. And it's we've seen a huge increase in lounge visits. I think over 30% in the last 12 months is what we've seen, and we continue to see that go up and up and up. And as much as customers are visiting more, airports are seeing the ability to add more lounge space. They're just not growing fast enough, and we're not able to add things fast enough to our program to meet all the demand. And how do we navigate that? We navigate as best as possible to bring in lots of technology that we can talk about in a bit around how you can improve that travel experience. But that's the state of the business today. And even the most recent few weeks or so with the reduction of flights and how that's playing out. And what we've seen in from our customers is you have some different things going on. You have customers that are spending more time at the checkpoint, and more, takes longer to get through. So they're spending less time in the lounge. So dwell times are shorter a bit for a bunch of our customers. And then you have customers that are coming to the airport 4 hours, 5 hours before, or they're having massive delays. So instead of spending an hour in a lounge, they're spending 3 hours. So it's this mixed bag of travelers out there. I think there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty right now that people are dealing with, but hopefully that'll be sorted soon.
Yeah. So I have to ask, when I know we're going to talk a bit about the survey that you guys recently did, which is largely focused on technology. So I want to come back to that. But but surely, as you guys have done previous studies and so on, and asked consumers what is the driving force behind their desire to go to a lounge versus hang out in the regular part of the terminal, what is the primary answer? What is the impetus for people wanting to be in the lounge?
Yeah, I use the term that we see a lot in South and Latin America, which is sala VIP, right? VIP lounge, VIP club, and that's the feeling that people want. I don't want to sit out there with everybody. I want to go to this elevated experience and feel special. And there's this sense of feeling special and feeling premium along the way. And people seek that out. They're going there. Lounges used to have to be on Main Street. You need to put a lounge right by the checkpoint or right where people are going. Otherwise, people won't go. You can put it in the basement, in the mezzanine. You can put it tucked away in a corner. People will seek it out, and people will want to go there and enjoy it. And people want the food and beverage. They want sort of a quiet seat, the Wi-Fi, the work, and there's a mixed bag of what the customers, what they want in the lounge. But it's this notion of being different, and it's a haven from the hustle and bustle of the terminal. Even if it's busy and loud, it feels a little different, and that's what people really are seeking out.
I've heard stories of executives who will get on a flight to go somewhere specifically because they like the lounge in that particular airport. They'll work all day and then end up flying back, in the evening. But that's where they do their business.
Yeah, yeah. people seek them out, and there's all these travel blogs and lots of ways to find out different nooks and crannies. And even we've added our ratings in the Priority Pass app to see how customers are rating the different lounges that we have, as a way for people to learn sort of the more preferred ones or the less preferred ones and the different amenities that they offer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's go back to that survey that you guys recently did, which again, I think was largely focused on how technology fits into people's perception of travel in general, but also got into the specifics of how it relates to the lounges as well. Let me just ask that question. How does technology here in 2025 sort of play into that airport travel experience and then specifically in the lounges?
Yeah. I think the notion of like going blind into that experience is removed in many ways with the growth of technology, right? You order a car service, it'll arrive in 2 minutes or 4 minutes, right? It's not there's not uncertainty anymore of there's variability, but there's less uncertainty into when it'll come to you. You can book your spot in the TSA line or your cleared travel line and sort of reserve your spot, whether it's fast track or whether it's regular security. But you can sort of figure out when you're going into the line, and there's even more information on what queues are today. So it's really the notion of like getting people more information to remove the uncertainty. In the lounges, we added pre-booking. So you want to reserve a spot in the lounge, you can pre-book it. And the way I talk about it is, you want to go to a nice restaurant tonight for dinner. You're not just showing up there at 6 p.m. and sort of hoping for the best, cross your fingers, hope for the best. No, you're reserving a table at that restaurant. It's the same thing with the lounges. Is you want to guarantee yourself access. You reserve it, you pre-book it, and you sort of guarantee your access that way. And adding more of those tools, those things to help people in their travel journey is what you see us rolling out these days.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating was, and maybe this isn't related specifically to the lounges, but the survey covered the collection of data from consumers to help the travel experience be a smoother one. And some of that data that was talked about in the survey had to do with biometrics, which is that's pretty personal information. And what the survey showed was that people, if it enhanced their travel experience, if it made their trip smoother, they were more than willing,
Mm.
by significant percentage,
Yeah.
in the survey, to provide that data, which is fascinating because it's almost counterintuitive to the discussions that we're having as a society today about sharing personal information in almost any other context, whether it's filling out something online, signing up for a subscription, whatever the case is. Like, a lot of times people don't want to share that data. Why is it so different when it comes to a travel experience that people are just willing to say yes to scan
Yeah.
me, whatever the case is?
Yeah. I think if people realize they can get value from that and a benefit to that, they're willing to do it. And you go to a foreign country, right? It's not uncertain. It's not foreign for them to like take your fingerprints, and they've been doing that for years. And now it's the eyes, right? The iris scan and different ways of that. So, and I think as travelers or more younger people show up and travel, right? They're people are younger generation, I think, is more willing to share things than an older generation. And to me, it's yes, I'll board that. I'll go through security with my face because it's faster, it's easier, right? And I don't have to take out my phone and get the QR code and make sure, wait for them to wait 10 seconds to confirm in their system. Boom, it goes through much faster. And that's the value that you see is when customers, I think, see the value in it, they're more willing to share it and go along that journey on what it takes. Trust is a key thing, right? If people abuse that information or that data, the whole thing falls apart. But let's keep it that way, that everything is safe and secure.
Well, and you touched on another aspect, which is the generational aspect, and I want to sprinkle in some socioeconomic discussion as well. But I mean, it sounds a little cliche at this point. We're constantly saying, millennials and Gen Z are much quicker to adopt technology and so on, and that seems to be the case here. Is that correlative with what you're seeing. I think you mentioned that, but
Yeah.
also I think what's interesting is, there is a cost to entry based on how you're getting into a lounge. Whether it's the credit card, the annual credit card fee, if that's how if that's how your access is based, or whatever the case might be. Um, so again, you've got a younger generation who's saying, yes, use technology. Yes, I want that experience, but they also don't have as much money as the older generation, that may be used to that. What can you kind of walk through that dichotomy there?
Yeah. It's the who travels more. It's more affluent people, right? More affluent tend to be a little older, that are more established, right? The higher net worth people, and that's their generalization. But you see lots and lots of pockets and people aspiring, and um, they sort of save money for the one big trip a year, and that's what they love. And so it's this mix of sort of infrequent users with the more heavy users, and that's what that we try to do is create the experiences that tailor for both. The premium credit cards are expensive, right? They're now six, seven, 800, even $900 a year. But it's you're paying those annual fees in the U.S., but you're getting a whole host of benefits, right? Travel benefits, leisure benefits, a lot of those different things, and it's sort of an investment in sort of this lifestyle that's created, which is great to see.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably a good segue because I wanted to ask you about Chase, which I think is one of your clients. And you guys recently released some information about their new program, which gives their customers access to Priority Pass lounges. And the implication was that Chase either didn't have or wasn't happy with the current program that they had, and they wanted to redo it. What was what did they feel like they were missing, and was that the driver for wanting to redo the program?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think Chase launched their premium credit cards a handful of years ago, and added a Priority Pass. And what does Priority Pass offer in many ways is scale, right? 1,800 things in 650 or so airports, 150 or so countries around the world. So massive, massive, large scale experiences. But what it doesn't offer, in many ways, is really, really bespoke branded opportunities for a subset of customers. And what Chase has done with the Chase Sapphire Reserve Lounges is taking a really, really premium experience as part of the overall lounge experience. So we're working with Chase, with our Airport Dimensions team, on building out and operating and growing that Chase Sapphire Reserve Lounge program, right, which has the Priority Pass component, but also these really premium lounges in LaGuardia and a bunch of airports around the US. And you see that growing really, really strongly for them and for us. And it's been really great partnership with them on that.
Gotcha. Are there any specific things that maybe you can talk about, maybe you can't, that kind of sets their program, apart from some of their competitors, which I'm going to do a double question here for you, which is also puts, I think, Collinson and Priority Pass in an interesting situation because the Priority Pass piece of it and the access to the Priority Pass lounges is the common denominator that a lot of different companies like Chase and whoever are using. So it kind of puts some pressure for them to differentiate their version of it from this other company over here. And so how do you navigate?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is we have different teams working on the different relationships to help push, to keep those sort of trade secrets separate, which is a key thing for us and for them. But it's true, Priority Pass with the hundreds of banks that we work with this bank and that bank who are competitors of each other, and we offer this program. So there's lots of ways to tailor it, and there's lots of ways. Some more transparent than others, some behind the scenes, some not, which is what we continuously work on. And there are things within the Priority Pass app that, depending on which membership you log in, you'll see this thing or you'll see that thing. And there's different variations of that. And as we roll out different things and grow the customer offerings, you'll see more variation of those things coming out there. So, in different categories, this customer may work with something, and this customer may not offer this to their customers. So how do we work closely with them? For Chase, it's really around like, yes, offering this global program, this global experience, but offering, consistency in some ways. So for them, there's a great tie-in with the Chase app where you get a lot of the lounge listings built in there. You get the, Chase branded QR code or Priority Pass access, which you can use in their lounges, in our lounges, and different places around the world, which not everyone has today. So, that's a unique thing that we work with them on, for example.
Gotcha. Well, and again, that's probably another good transition into some discussion about personalization, which really, if you pull back to 100,000 feet, like every company that has a loyalty program right now is thinking about personalization. How can I make this experience that I'm providing for my customers, sort of as unique to them as possible, so that they feel like they're being listened to and their concerns and desires are being addressed and so on. Obviously, as you just mentioned, Chase can kind of, create a unique experience for its customers and its new lounges. You guys are part of that to some degree, and certainly other clients. But from Collinson's perspective, how does personalization come into play as you're working with banks and other clients?
Yeah. I mean, I think personalization is no longer optional. It's sort of required and expected, but it's a journey, as you tie in different ecosystems and different technology. And I remember I had a meet and assist booked for me in one of the airports. I think I was in Europe. And literally, I told them my flight information and it was confirmed. And I pulled up on the curb and they were there and they're like, Mr. Dalkoff, we've been waiting for you. And like, wow, like that's a unique, special experience. And that's more difficult to play out and to scale, but that's our North Star, if you will, of when the customer walks in and using facial recognition, using biometrics, using whatever it is, knowing who they are, knowing where they like to sit. So again, most lounges you sit, you choose where you sit today, but there are some where you get escorted to a certain table. It's sort of like a hostess, if you will. And so how do you know what the customer wants and likes and tying in beverages and all those things into the experience. So that's where we want to get to. It's difficult with such a large ecosystem, but there are small things that we do along the way to test and learn as we develop it.
Yeah, as you were talking, I'm sitting here thinking, I am clearly going to the wrong lounges because that sounds fantastic.
Amazing. Yes. Yes.
And so maybe we can kind of wrap up in talking about that personal experience and how that gets delivered. We talked about technology earlier, which things like facial recognition can make things more efficient, quicker, less hassle. You don't have to grab your ID and so on. It's all taken care of for you, et cetera, et cetera. But the other piece of this is the human element. And as we all know, and again, today is probably a great example of when the human element, comes to play. People, when they don't get the answer that they want, or when the experience isn't exactly what they want it to be, anecdotally speaking, they're not turning to the technology saying, "Hey, I need you to fix this for me." They're generally looking for a person to do that. How are you guys blending that, sort of technology-based experience with the human element and making sure that part's not lost?
Yeah, I mean, definitely human interaction is key, and just being able to look at someone and to smile and to all those things. Like technology can't replicate those things. And so even some the notion of like, there's a couple lounges that are doing sort of robotic bars or baristas or that kind of thing. And they're small tests, but being able to walk up to a bar and order a drink with someone and have a little dialogue, it's like it's special, right? And people want that. And it's how do you scale and grow and reduce cost, right, where necessary, but create this wonderful experience. And again, as I said, why do people come to the lounge? They want to feel special, and you can't just make it a stale environment that is all sort of electronic, right? You need that staff, you need the people to care and to check in, and there are problems in the travel experience where people need to check in on this or check in on that and sort of deal with issues. And having someone at that concierge desk, if you will, to help them is tremendous. Even though you could just put a phone, as we call it, the bat phone, you call the phone and you reach a magic line. Having someone in person to sort of help through that is really, really special and unique and something we look for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeremy, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today on our Leaders in Customer Loyalty podcast. It was great getting your perspective on customer loyalty, and we look forward to learning more from you and the team at Collinson.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yep. Absolutely. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to our Leaders in Customer Loyalty podcast series. If you haven't already, please subscribe and follow Loyalty 360 on YouTube and LinkedIn. The links are provided below. And please join us every Tuesday for another edition of our Industry Voices podcast. See you next time.